The first thing I noticed was the music. Not because it was loud, though it was, but because it was coming from my own living room, paid for with my own money, in a house I had sold my home to help buy. And no one had told me there was a party tonight. I stood at the top of the basement stairs in my robe, listening. Laughter rose through the floorboards, sharp and careless, the kind that belongs to people who have never once wondered where their next meal would come from. Glasses clinked. Someone turned the volume up. I could feel the bass humming through the soles of my slippers. It was March 14th, my birthday. I had turned 68 that morning without a single mention of it. Not from my daughter, not from her husband, not even a card left on the kitchen counter. I'd made my own coffee, eaten toast alone in the basement bedroom they'd given me when I moved in, and spent the afternoon reading by the small window that looked out onto the side of the neighbor's fence. I told myself they were busy. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself a lot of things that year. But standing there at the top of those stairs, hearing my daughter's voice rise above the rest, bright and hostess perfect, I understood something I had been refusing to understand for months. I wasn't a member of this family anymore. I was the funding behind it. Let me go back. Not far. Just enough for the shape of things to make sense. My husband Raymond passed 5 years ago. Lung cancer, the kind that doesn't negotiate. He was a postman for 31 years in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and he never missed a day until the diagnosis. After he was gone, I kept the house on Maple Ridge for as long as I could. 3 bedrooms, a yard with a birch tree Raymond planted the year our daughter was born, a kitchen that still smelled like his coffee no matter how many times I scrubbed the pot. But a house built for a family feels enormous when you're the only one in it. The stairs got harder. The roof leaked. The furnace groaned every winter like it was begging to retire alongside me. My daughter Janine called one Sunday, voice warm and persuasive. "Mom, we've been talking and we think it makes more sense for you to move in with us. We've got room. The kids would love it. And honestly, we'd feel better knowing you weren't alone." The "we" she mentioned was her and her husband Lyle, a regional sales manager who sold industrial kitchen equipment and talked about profit margins the way some men talk about football. He wasn't cruel. He was simply one of those people who measured the world in transactions, and I suspect he measured me the same way. I didn't say yes right away, but Janine kept calling, kept mentioning how expensive it was to maintain a house at my age, kept reminding me that the neighborhood wasn't what it used to be. She was right about some of it. She was strategic about all of it. I sold the house in August, got a fair price, not a fortune, but enough to feel secure. Raymond's pension, my savings from 22 years of bookkeeping at a medical supply company, and the house sale together gave me a cushion. Not lavish, but real. When I moved in, things were fine at first. They gave me the guest room upstairs, the one with the window facing the garden. Janine made dinner every night, and we'd eat together, the 4 of us, sometimes 5 when Abby, my granddaughter, wasn't at a friend's house. Abby was 15 then, sharp-eyed and soft-hearted. The kind of teenager who still held doors open for strangers. But fine has a way of shifting so gradually you don't notice the ground moving beneath you. The first change was small. Lyle mentioned, casually, over pasta one evening, that their car insurance had gone up. "Brutal," he said, shaking his head. "Almost double." He didn't ask me for money. He didn't need to. The silence that followed was the ask. I offered to cover the difference. Janine smiled and said, "Mom, you don't have to do that." But she didn't say no. After that, the requests never came. As requests never came, as requests, they arrived dressed as updates, complaints, sighs. The dishwasher broke. Abby needed new gear for lacrosse. The property tax bill was insane this year. Lyle's car needed new brakes. Each time, the information was placed before me like a dish at a restaurant where the prices aren't listed. You're simply expected to know you're paying. And I did, every time. I told myself this was what family meant. I told myself I was fortunate to have somewhere to live, people who kept me company, a granddaughter who still climbed onto the couch beside me on Saturday mornings. I told myself Raymond would have done the same thing. But Raymond, practical man that he was, would have seen through it sooner. He used to say, there's a difference between helping someone cross the street and carrying them on your back for the rest of your life. The guest room lasted 4 months. One afternoon, Janine came in while I was reading and sat on the edge of the bed with that careful expression she uses when she's about to reshape reality. Mom, Lyle's been working from home more and he really needs a proper office. We were thinking, the basement is actually really nice. We could set it up for you. It's quiet down there. Private. Private. That was the word she chose. As if being moved underground was a luxury. I said, okay. I don't know why. Maybe because saying no felt like starting a war I didn't have the energy to fight. Maybe because I still believed that if I gave enough, they would eventually see me as more than what I gave. The basement was finished, technically. Carpet, drywall, a bathroom with a shower that took 3 minutes to get warm. But the ceiling was low. The light was thin, and the only window sat at ground level, offering a view of mulch and the neighbors' recycling bins. I arranged my things as neatly as I could. Photographs on the shelf. Raymond's watch on the nightstand. The quilt my mother made me when I married. I told myself it was cozy. It wasn't. Over the next several months, my presence upstairs became increasingly optional. Dinner invitations grew informal to the point of disappearing. Oh, we already ate, Janine would say when I came up at 6. There's leftovers in the fridge. The leftovers were always whatever they hadn't finished. Scraps arranged on a plate like an afterthought. One night, I found a piece of chicken sitting on a paper towel, not even plated, next to a half-empty container of coleslaw. I ate it standing at the counter, because my chair at the dining table had been replaced by a decorative bench Janine had ordered online. I stopped being invited to outings. They'd go to restaurants on Fridays and come home smelling like garlic bread and red wine, laughing about something the waiter said. You wouldn't have liked it, Mom, Janine offered once. The music was too loud. As if volume was the reason I'd been left behind. Lyle stopped acknowledging me almost entirely. Not with hostility, but with the practiced disinterest of someone who has mentally reclassified you as furniture. He'd walk past me in the hallway without a word, eyes fixed on his phone, as though I occupied the same visual priority as the coat rack. The only light in those months was Abby. She'd knock on the basement door after school, sometimes just to talk, sometimes to show me something on her phone, sometimes to sit with me while she did homework. She never treated the basement like something beneath her, even though it literally was. Grandma, do you like it down here? She asked one evening, legs tucked under her on the carpet. I paused too long before answering. She noticed. You don't have to pretend, she said quietly. I wouldn't like it either. That girl saw me. In a house full of people who had stopped looking, she saw me, but even Abby couldn't stop what was happening to my bank account. By February, I had transferred or paid out nearly $40,000 since moving in. I hadn't tracked it carefully, which was my fault. I'd spent my career keeping impeccable books for other people's businesses and somehow failed to keep my own. When I finally sat down and tallied the numbers, my hands went cold. The insurance payments. The temporary grocery contributions that became permanent. The new patio Lyle wanted. Abby's lacrosse camp. A weekend trip to Cape Cod that I funded but wasn't invited on. My savings had been carved into so quietly, so steadily, that the damage only showed when I looked at the full picture. And that brings me back to the night of my birthday. I stood at the top of the basement stairs listening to a party I hadn't been invited to, bought with money I hadn't been asked for, but had somehow provided through the joint grocery account Janine managed. She had ordered catering. I could smell rosemary and roasted lamb. 30 or 40 people, it sounded like. Her book club, Lyle's work friends, neighbors I'd never been introduced to. I walked back down the stairs slowly. Not because my knees forced me to, but because I wanted to feel each step, Each one felt like a year I had spent making myself smaller so everyone else could be comfortable. I sat on the edge of my bed and placed my hands flat on my knees. The bass thumped above me. Someone dropped a glass and people cheered. And in that moment, a thought arrived. Not angry, not dramatic, just clean and final, like the last page of a long book. I am done. Not done with my daughter. Not done with love. Done with live-af. Done with disappearing. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark listening to the party wind down. Cab doors. Laughter thinning. The muffled rhythm of Janine and Lyle cleaning up. No one came downstairs. No one checked. At one point I heard Janine say, clearly enough through the floor, "I think Mom went to bed early," as if I had chosen sleep over the celebration happening directly above my head, as if the omission was mine. By 5 in the morning I was dressed. I made my bed with the precision of someone who knows she won't be sleeping in it again. I folded the quilt, placed Raymond's watch in my purse, and packed one bag. Just essentials. I could come back for the rest. I left through the side door, the one that opens from the basement to the driveway. The morning air hit my face, and I stood there for a moment, feeling the coolness settle against my skin. A robin sat on the fence post, watching me with that tilt-headed curiosity birds have, as if it recognized something changing. My first stop was the bank. I called ahead the day before, during the party, while no one could hear me. The branch manager, a young woman named Chantal, had been kind on the phone. She hadn't asked too many questions, just confirmed what I needed. I arrived before they opened, the way I always do. Raymond used to tease me about it. "You'd show up early to your own funeral, Glo," he'd say. My name is Gloria, though no one in that house had used it in months. I was just Mom or Grandma or, increasingly, nothing at all. Chantal met me at her desk with a firm handshake and a glass of water I hadn't asked for, but appreciated. I placed my documents in front of her, account statements, the joint account details, the automatic transfers I'd set up over the past year. "I need to separate everything," I said. "Close the joint account. Move my funds into a new individual account. Cancel every automatic transfer tied to my daughter's household." She reviewed the paperwork without rushing, then looked up. "Mrs. Beckett, are you sure about all of this?" "I am," I said. "And the recurring payments, mortgage contribution, car insurance, the credit card you co-signed, all of it." She typed quietly for a moment. "The co-signed card, once you remove your guarantee, it may be declined if they've exceeded their own credit limit." "I know," I said. She studied my face, not with suspicion, but with the careful attention of someone trained to recognize distress. "Is anyone pressuring you to do this?" "No one is pressuring me," I said. "For the first time in a year, no one is pressuring me at all." She nodded. We worked through each item methodically. I signed form after form, my handwriting steady, my breathing even. When it was finished, she gathered the papers and looked at me. "You should know that some of these changes will take effect immediately. They may notice today." "Good," I said. They should have noticed a long time ago. From the bank, I drove to a small apartment complex on Birch Lane, the kind with tidy brick facades and window boxes. I'd found it online 3 days earlier and called the landlord, a retired electrician named Mr. Keene, who showed me a one-bedroom on the second floor. It had good light, a kitchen with a gas stove, and a balcony just wide enough for a chair and a cup of coffee. The rent was reasonable. The silence was priceless. I signed the lease that morning. Mr. Keene handed me the keys and said, "Welcome home, Mrs. Beckett." It was the first time in a year someone had said my name like it belonged to a person and not a bank account. I spent the rest of the morning moving my essentials. It didn't take long. A woman who's been condensed into a basement doesn't accumulate much. I set up the bedroom first, hung the quilt on the wall instead of the bed, placed Raymond's watch on the nightstand, and arranged the photographs along the windowsill where they'd catch the afternoon light. By noon, the apartment already felt more like mine than the basement ever had. The calls started around 2 o'clock. "Janine," 4 times in a row. I let each one ring through. Then a text. Mom, where are you? Your room is empty. Did you go somewhere? Your room. As if the basement were a gift I should have been grateful for. 20 minutes later, another text. Mom, seriously, where are you? Call me back. Then Lyle, which surprised me. He never called unless something involved money. His text was shorter, more direct. Gloria, the mortgage autopay bounced. Did something happen with the account? Something happened, yes. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to inflict silence, but because I had spent a year responding to every demand, every hint, every sigh, and it had only taught them that I would always answer. Some lessons can only be learned in the absence of the person who's been doing all the teaching. By evening, the texts grew frantic. Mom, the credit card got declined at the grocery store. What is going on? Lyle says the joint account is closed. Mom, please call. We're worried about you. Abby is asking where you are. That last one paused me. Abby. My chest tightened. She didn't deserve to be scared. I picked up the phone and typed a single message to her directly. I'm safe, sweetheart. I moved to my own place. I'll tell you everything soon. I love you. She wrote back almost instantly. I knew something was wrong. I'm glad you left. Can I visit? I pressed the phone against my chest and closed my eyes. That girl. In a household that had slowly erased me, she had kept my outline visible. Of course you can, I wrote back. Anytime. The next morning, Janine showed up. I don't know how she found the address. Maybe Abby mentioned Birch Lane. Maybe she called around. She knocked hard the way she does when she believes the world owes her a faster response. I opened the door. She stood there in her running jacket, hair pulled back, face tight with the kind of anger that's really fear wearing a mask. What is this? She said, gesturing at the hallway behind me as if the apartment itself were the insult. This is where I live now, I said. You can't just leave without telling anyone. We were terrified. Lyle thought something happened to you. Something did happen to me, I said quietly. It happened slowly, over many months, and no one noticed. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Opened it again. If this is about the party, it's not about the party, Janine. It's about the fact that you threw a party on my birthday, in my presence with my money, and didn't invite me. And that was just the last thing in a very long list. She blinked. I could see the machinery working behind her eyes, sorting through possible responses, looking for the one that would steer this conversation back to familiar ground. Mom, you know you're always welcome. I just thought you thought I wouldn't enjoy being remembered? That stopped her. For a full 5 seconds, she stood in the doorway and said nothing. Something moved across her face, not remorse, not yet, but the beginning of recognition. The first crack. I need you to understand something, I said. I sold my home to be closer to you. I contributed nearly everything I had to your household. I let myself be moved to a basement, fed scraps, excluded from your life, and treated like a tenant who pays but has no rights. And through all of it, I said nothing because I believed that's what a good mother does. My voice didn't break. I was surprised by that. But I was wrong, I continued. A good mother also teaches her children that people have limits. And I failed to teach you that. So I'm teaching you now. She stared at me with glassy eyes. For a moment, I saw the little girl who used to climb into my lap during thunderstorms, who asked me to check under the bed every single night until she was 9, who once told me I was the strongest person in the world. Mom, she whispered, I know you didn't mean to, I said. That's the problem. You didn't mean anything by it. I became so small in your life that hurting me required no intention at all. She pressed her hand over her mouth. Her shoulders shook once, then steadied. I didn't reach for her. Not because I didn't want to, but because comforting her now would only pull me back into the pattern. The soothing, the smoothing over, the quiet retreat into someone else's convenience. I'm not punishing you, I said. I need you to hear that. I'm not angry. I'm just finished being invisible. She nodded slowly, like someone absorbing a blow that landed somewhere she couldn't protect. Can I come in? She asked. Not today, I said gently. Today, I need this space to be mine. She stood there another moment, then turned and walked down the stairs without another word. I closed the door and leaned against it, letting a long breath leave my body. The apartment was quiet. Sunlight came through the kitchen window and landed on the counter in a warm stripe. I traced it with my finger. The days that followed were not easy, but they were honest. Lyle called once, stiff and businesslike, asking me to reconsider the financial arrangements. I told him the arrangements had already been reconsidered by me for the first time. He didn't call again. Janine texted sporadically. Short messages, careful, as if she were learning a new language. Thinking of you. I'm sorry about the basement. Can we talk soon? I responded when I was ready, not when she expected. And then, one Saturday afternoon, Abby appeared at my door with a small box in her hands. She looked taller somehow. Or maybe I'd just been looking up from too low a place. Happy belated birthday, Grandma, she said, handing me the box. Inside was a framed photograph. Me and Raymond standing in front of the Maple Ridge house, the birch tree just a sapling behind us. I was shielding my eyes from the sun. He had his arm around my waist. We looked young and certain and whole. I found it in one of the boxes you left behind, Abby said. I thought you should have it. I held the frame against my chest and felt something crack open inside me, not painfully, but the way ice cracks in spring, making room for water to move again. Thank you, I said. You have no idea what this means. She hugged me then, tight and long, the way only someone who truly sees you can hold on. After she left, I placed the photograph on the windowsill beside the others. Raymond smiled out at me from behind the glass, steady as ever. I could almost hear his voice. You did it, Glo. You finally stopped giving yourself away. That evening, I sat on my small balcony with a cup of chamomile tea and watched the streetlights come on one by one. The air was cool, but not unkind. Somewhere nearby, a neighbor was cooking something with garlic, and the smell drifted up warm and ordinary. I wasn't angry. I wasn't triumphant. I was simply present. Fully, without apology, in a life that finally fit me. A woman can spend decades building a home for everyone else and forget she deserves a room of her own. Not a basement, not a corner. A room with a window and a door she can close when she needs to and open when she's ready. I took a slow sip of tea and let the quiet fold around me. Not the quiet of being forgotten, but the quiet of choosing yourself after a lifetime of choosing everyone else. And for the first time in longer than I care to count, the silence felt like it belonged to me.